lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound, let it resounding sea.
Friends, welcome. We are here again, starting out with what has become our tradition, lift every voice and sing the Black National Anthem. We are the community of American Church in Berlin, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you this morning as the curator of the talks. Before we move on, if you are here for the first time, could I see your hand? Oh, okay. We've got all first time. Okay, we do have a first timer. Fantastic. So let's give her a round of applause because we're always thrilled to have a new face amidst us and supporting us, and we're happy and grateful to have you here today. Our talk today is what we call a silent talk. It's not completely silent because I'm still moving my mouth. Stop Them is what it's called, and we'll be looking at stories of civil rights leaders and civil rights activists who were slain because of their work and their conviction. And those of you who've been here before, you'll notice that there are some new faces, and each time we have one of these talks, one of these events, we try to bring new stories to you because so many of us aren't aware of the sacrifices that were made and of the real history. So we try to bring those new stories to you. Before we go on with that, I'm going to invite Pastor Mari to come up and give us a word of blessing and centering.
Thank you that we can all be here, that we are here together very intentionally. And so I'd like to invite us now to set our intention even deeper on the fact that we are here to recognize that Black lives matter, that we all can work together for justice, that who we are matters, all of us, and that we are here to see that we are all brothers and sisters. So I'm going to ask you to take a time for centering now, centering prayer, and feel the sense, I invite you to feel the sense that we are one with each other. Even that noise out there, it is something that is calling to us right now. Somebody is in trouble or in need of help. Every time a police or ambulance goes by, I always think, okay, this is my time to pray right now. Thank you. So let's just take a moment now to focus on this unitive sense that we are one with these people in the aisles, that we are one family. They are alive in us, their spirits live in us, that as God's people, we are one, we belong together. Let's take a moment of silence. Thank you, beloved God, that we can turn to you, that your spirit is within each of us, and that in the presence of darkness in our world, of oppression, of death and destruction, and slavery, and racism, and the caste system that is in us, that you call us together into the light. Thank you this day for each person here, and the story that we are, and the story that we will learn today and share. The stories of our sisters and brothers who live on to inspire us and teach us to live life in a more noble, respectful, and higher calling, to work for the common good. bless our time together. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Mari. What dream do you hold so dear that you would die for it? What dream do you hold so dear that you would live for it every single day of your life? Do you have such a dream? They are rare, but some people do have dreams that they hold so dear that they would die for them and that they would live for them every single day. Young Michael is one of these people, although he doesn't know it yet. So at the tender age of 5, a seed is planted in him. The seed is carried back home from a trip. His father carries it from a visit to Lutherstadt, Wittenberg, Germany. Some dads bring home souvenirs. They bring home t-shirts, hats, mugs. Michael's dad brought home a seedling vision of a world that is fairer, more just, equitable for everyone. He also brought home a new name. Both Michael and his dad changed their names to Martin Luther King Jr. and Sr. after that trip. Now, there's a Latin saying, nomen et omen, and it means that the name is a prophecy of something to come, which also makes me wonder why my parents named me after a name that means goddess of wine. That is a different story for another time. But now, renamed after a German religious reformer and a social activist, young Martin develops a keen sense of awareness of what is justice and what is injustice. And it begins when he first starts school. This is when he first experiences and encounters the jagged edges of racial and economical injustice. Suddenly, the friends that he once played with, he's no longer invited. In fact, he's no longer allowed to play with them. They now attend segregated schools. Boy, you keep to your own kind. This here is for whites only. And the comfortable middle-class home that Martin had known until then could not shield him from the injustice that was always just outside his door. And Martin takes it all in. Did you know that Martin Luther King never finished high school? Instead, at 15, he went straight to college. He went to Morehouse College, a traditionally black college. And that is where he encountered the words of Henry David Thoreau. It is Thoreau's essay on civil disobedience that fertilizes the seed that was planted so long ago. And it starts this momentum that is going to one day change the landscape of society and have King demanding that America make real the promise of democracy. Make real the promise of democracy. King graduates from Morehouse College, goes on to graduate from Boston University, obtains a doctorate, and becomes an ordained minister. His thirst for knowledge and thinking that will somehow break these systems of oppression, of social and economic injustice, is unquenchable. From his first public speech at the age of 17 until his last public appearance, King delivers over 2,500 speeches. He writes 9 books, dozens of essays. He wins the Nobel Peace Prize, meets with 3 presidents, is arrested 29 times. He receives dozens and dozens of death threats. And he experiences the terror of coming home from travel to a home that has been bombed with his wife and baby inside. And fortunately, they survived, but it will not be the last bombing. Come on, could you go? On April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King is assassinated. Dr. King is shot dead because he refuses to give up on his dream. The dream that one day little black and brown and white boys and girls will walk hand in hand without fear. The dream that one day people of every color, of every kind and status could join together in the chorus of that old Negro spiritual. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty. We are free at last. And in the year 2020, more than 52 years after Dr. King lost his life, holding fast to a dream that he not only died for, but lived for every day, we continue to fight his fight, our fight, for justice, for equity in America, in Germany, around the world. And friends, Dr. Martin Luther King is perhaps the most well-known of the civil rights leaders and activists, yet he is by far not the only dreamer, the only activist, the only martyr whose life was cut short before that dream worth dying for could become a reality. And it is on the shoulders of these giants that I stand here, that we all are in this space today, able to be in this space together. And as we continue to dream, as you walk around the exhibit and you see the stories of men and women, remembering that we've got all of these where it says dreamer, activists, and martyr, those are the people who lost their lives during that period that is known as the civil rights movement era. As you walk around, ask yourself, what must I do? How must I walk through the world? Who must I become in order to walk the talk of brotherly love, brotherly and sisterly love of humanity? What must I do? So that one day we will be able to all lift up our voices. Lift up our voices, and if you join me now and say, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. So I invite you to walk around, read the stories, and reflect on the many peoples, some of whom are ordinary people just like we were, just like we are, people who just made the commitment to bring about justice and equity.
dreamer, activist, martyr, Reverend George Lee, one of the first Black people registered to vote in Humphreys County, used his pulpit and his printing press to urge others to vote. White officials offered Lee protection on the condition he end his voter registration efforts, but Lee refused and was murdered. May 7th, 1955, Belzoni, Mississippi.
We are coming to the end of our time here before we begin our walk. And after reading and reflecting on all these stories of these dreamers, activists, and martyrs, people who risked and gave their lives to stand for freedom, for justice, for equity, for Black men and women, children, I hope that we are able to reflect on that as we begin walking to Brandenburg Gate today and go out and uphold a dream that is worthy of both dying and living. And we're going to close out with a video that was a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King, and in this regard to all of the people who continue to fight the good fight.